Good morning, everyone. My name is Caleb Nail. This is Nailed It Sports. Today is September 23rd, 2024. I think the last time we spoke was September 12th. It's been a little bit. My grandfather passed, and we had family in town, and I wanted to spend time and focus on the family and be with them and friends. And we had a wonderful time celebrating my grandfather's life. So thank you for allowing me to do that. Today we're gonna recap what happened over the weekend with the football in the football world. And then we're gonna have our Yeovil Town update. If you've listened to anything in the past, any of the episodes in the past, then you know we keep up with a small team in the UK from Yeovil called Yeovil Town. So we're going to see what's going on over there. But first and foremost, we always talk a little Jesus here at Nailed It Sports, because that is why we're here, is to bring him glory and honor. And I just have something really short this time. You know, in going through this weekend with my Papa, we called him Papa. Everybody knew him as Papa. The nurses, my friends, he was everyone's Papa. He was great. But this is one of the verses that I was tasked with finding verses that reflected his life, and this one stood out to me that reflected his life, but also that I think is good for everyone. And it's wonderful, and it's in Romans chapter 15, verse 13. It's just one verse. It says this: "May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit." And one of the reasons it stuck out to me, and maybe a little selfish, is because I have been very curious over the past, I would say this year, with the word hope and what that means on earth. A Christian will tell you, we find our hope in Jesus Christ, that one day we will be with him. But it also got me thinking, that to me is the true hope, right? One day we will run our race, and one day we will be in paradise with Jesus, the God of the universe. At the same time, as I struggle through this word hope, and I say struggle because I want, it's hard for me because, and someone in the comments, please, down below in the comments, tell me what your view is on hope, because I think it's more than just, hi, Lobo. We got the Belgian, the Malinois is here, the neighbor's dog. Hi, bud. He's a good dog. He runs with me and right next to me the whole time. Hey, bud, I can't play right now. But as we talk about hope, here's my thought on it is, yes, we have hope that one day we can be with him, but at the same time, we can be with him right now. So that is my thinking process with this word hope, is I don't want Christians to get caught up in, I'm going to hope and then wait on Jesus. No, I want Christians to know that we are tasked, we have a responsibility now because we have Jesus right now. The Holy Spirit is, Paul says to the Romans, to the church in Rome, at the end of this verse, may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. So by the power of the Holy Spirit, we may overflow with hope. And so I encourage you to ask the Holy Spirit to fill you up with joy, peace, and then add in there hope. And I've been praying for joy and peace the past 2 weeks for myself and my family. And I'm at peace with my grandfather passing. Um, it was a wonderful time, and he was full of joy. A lot of the family was full of joy in his passing. And I think as believers, it's easier for believers to experience that, especially if your loved one that passed was a believer. So I know Papa is running and dancing in paradise right now with Jesus. But then to add in hope. But I think it's important to know that only by the Holy Spirit can we overflow with hope and joy and peace and self-control. These are all fruits of the Spirit. And so, I think if you're not a believer, it's going to be really hard for you to have overflowing peace, joy, and hope, right? Because what do you put your hope in if you're not a believer? To me, I don't know. I don't. I can't put my hope in the next day because I don't know what's going to happen. But if I have Jesus, I can put my hope in Jesus, and I know that no matter what happens, Jesus is the one true constant, and the Holy Spirit, who is part of the triune God, he has the power to fill me up with hope. And so as I struggle with understanding what hope is, I think it's really hard. I think hope is one of the hardest things to understand. As I, as I do have a hope that one day I will be with Christ. That is my ultimate goal, is to be with Christ in the end. But I also want for people to understand that you can have Jesus right now. Don't get so caught up in this future hope. You can be with and know Jesus right now, walk with him right now. So if you have any questions like that, feel free, shoot that in the questions in the comment section. You could shoot it over. You can DM me on X, Caleb_Nail. And then if you're here, share the video with your buddies. We talk Jesus here, and we talk sports. So, I love banter in sports. When it comes to the sports world, I love talking about Jesus, and that's what we're going to do here. All right. Go read Romans 15:13. It's Paul's letter to the church in Rome, and he ends, or in verse 13, it says, "May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him." Make sure you have to trust in him. Have to trust. That is hard as well. These are all really hard things, but all powerful, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. I love that. All right, let's talk sports. Big weekend of football, college, NFL. And one thing, and we're going to talk about Fresno State. And I encourage you to go check out Beware of Bulldogs if you're a Fresno State fan. Beware of Bulldogs is my other podcast. We talk only Fresno State athletics there. But we will talk Fresno State here. I want to talk about quarterback and the difference in success at the quarterback position, something I was observing over the weekend. We were talking about actually with the family over the weekend. And then we're going to get into college football scores and things that happened. What a fun weekend in college football. Okay, but I want to start with the difference in success at the quarterback position. So I've observed this at Fresno State. You've probably observed this with your team that you cheer for. And then I watched it over the weekend with the Carolina Panthers, and it really stood out to me. So Carolina Panthers, they bench Bryce Young, they bring in Andy Dalton, and the Raiders are going to Raider, and the Raiders lost to the Panthers, who have looked terrible all season long. And the Raiders get absolutely dominated, and Andy Dalton looked really good. So we're sitting on the couch because we have multiple people in the family that are Raiders fans. We're not diehard Raiders fans, but we enjoy cheering for the Raiders. But over the past 2-3 years, I really just have enjoyed watching good football players and good coaches and just good people. I actually enjoy cheering on good people more than anything. So you may call me a bandwagon fan if that's the case. But what stood out to me was how Andy Dalton found success on a team that some people said was a terrible team. Well, what was the difference here? Was it Andy Dalton? And maybe was it a lack of film this year that they had on Andy Dalton? They just were not prepared for Andy Dalton. But at the same time, they said that they were going to bench Bryce Young. So the Raiders should have known what was coming with Andy Dalton, watched old film, watched his tendencies, things like that. Was it Andy Dalton's experience and the ability to adjust in game? Or did Andy Dalton understand the Raiders better than Bryce Young would have? So was it the experience that made the difference? I don't know. Did coaching come into play? Did play calling? Did the coaches have a great game plan for the Raiders? Was it the O-line? Or is it the O-line? So what is the difference in success at quarterback? Because you see this a lot. You'll see a backup come in. You'll see a Ryan Fitzmagic come in, have 2 games where he's very successful, and then they kind of get the film on him, and then it goes away. That success goes away. So does this last with Andy Dalton? You know, I've seen this at Fresno State. The backup quarterback comes in. Joshua Wood comes in. He has success running the ball. We run the option, and we give him a lot of different looks. Mikey King comes back in. They kind of have the film. I'm leaning towards that there's a lack of film on these quarterbacks. So then when they come in, the defenses and the defensive coordinators don't really know what's going on, what to read, what they're going to do with these quarterbacks. And so they're trying to adjust on the fly. They're kind of trying to stick to their game plan, but it's not working. And so these quarterbacks have success for 1 to 2 games. Once the film is out, then they lose that element of surprise. I like it, though. I like watching these quarterbacks come in and have success. Right? And I would say, here's the other part of this is I am not one for switching quarterbacks around. Okay. And I know that rookie quarterbacks really struggle. You know, we've watched this for the past decade where they bring in rookie quarterbacks and start them right away. And how many have really panned out? Like, not many. I could only think of a few. Right? Shoot, even Peyton Manning. He didn't win very many Super Bowls. He was very good. But the guys that have had the most success sit. I mean, the 2 that come to mind, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes. They sit and learn. And they're very humble, and they win. So I think there's something to be said about that. But here's the other thing, is that if you have a roster of experienced quarterbacks, and this may be crazy, but why don't you start a guy for 2 games, then bring in the next guy for 2 games, bring in the next guy for 2 games, there's no film on them, and then you can rotate them. It's terrible. It goes against everything in football. I know. But when you see success when different quarterbacks come in, right? Like an Andy Dalton, like we've seen in the past um, with other quarterbacks, it makes you wonder, right? I mean, it makes you think. This isn't the first time I've thought that. And I'm even questioning myself, like that's Caleb. No, let's not do that. But I just wonder if that would work. But then once again, I want to go back to, is it the lack of film? And I'm asking this to myself. I need to think through this. Is it the lack of film on the quarterback? Is it the experience with the ability to adjust? Is it coaching? Is it play calling? Is it O-line play? I mean, Crosby was banged up that game. So does that make a difference? You know, what is the reason for the success when these quarterbacks that I would say have a little experience, but there's a lack of film out there on them, come in and they have success for game 1 and game 2 and then drop off? Was that reason? Comment down below your thoughts. Let's talk Fresno State real quick. So Fresno State defeats New Mexico 38-21. And we recapped it last night for you, but I just like giving you my thoughts really quick if you didn't catch the live stream or you haven't listened to that episode. Is the Bulldogs are now 3-1. They are, I'll put this, I don't know what to think yet about the Bulldogs. So I would say they've played a lackluster schedule, and their first game against Michigan, I don't really know what to think about Michigan anymore after they beat USC this past weekend. Okay, because their offense is poor. We know that at Michigan, but their defense is pretty good. That USC offense has been good, and they shut them down. But Michigan made the USC defense look soft once again. Back to last year's defense. And then after the Michigan game, Fresno State really hasn't played anyone. Sacramento State, New Mexico State, and New Mexico. The bottom of the two teams at the bottom of the FBS, in my opinion, New Mexico State and New Mexico. And they did play a good FCS team in Sac State. Might have been their toughest contest after Michigan in the past 4 games. Or the past 3 games after Michigan. Now, they won those games, but I think what people are really trying to wrap their mind around is, are we good enough to win the Mountain West? Because that's the end goal, right? Let's win the Mountain West, put ourselves in the best position to where the college football playoff is going to have to think about what group of 5 team are going to take to the playoff. Right. And the media loves Boise. So if we have a win over Boise in the championship, that's huge. Okay. But we're trying to find a spot to put us right now, trying to place us in the right spot. And I don't know where to place us. A group of 5 guys, they do a good job talking about group of 5 stuff. They talked about they ranked on Sunday the group of 5 teams, and they put Fresno State at 5. I thought it was fair. UNLV 1, I think Boise 2, Texas State, and Tulane in the top 4, and then we were 5. I think that's fair. But do we know what we have yet with Fresno State football? I still think there's more questions than answers. I think Mikey Keene he hasn't had a lot of help recently on the O-line. The O-line is banged up. Once again, Fresno State O-line banged up. So we're going to be moving guys around. Our best offensive lineman, Mose Vavao, he was out. Then McCarg, our guard, he gets hurt against New Mexico. So it's going to be tough to see. Now, we do have weapons. Running backs have looked good. Wide receivers have looked good. Other than the first drive against Mexico, where you had 2 drop balls and wide open. It hits you right in the hands. We got to catch those. We got to do our job. but they got better as the game went on. We just can't have those things happening. We're going to have solid O-line play, and we're going to have to catch the ball against better competition because we went 3 and out that first drive with 2 drops. Then we forced a fumble, which was huge, and then we go down and score a touchdown. So defense bailed us out on that one, switched the momentum, then we go down and score. That's huge. So defense is going to have to carry us. And here's what I have been saying about Fresno State. I've been using the word potential. And if you know me, I say this about potential. It's the most dangerous word in the sports world. Right? Bryce Young had a ton of potential. But did they do anything to bring that out of him? Caleb Williams has a ton of potential, but if you don't draft offensive linemen and bring him in, can you get him to reach his potential? Chicago Bears aren't doing that right now, in my opinion. Panthers didn't do that, in my opinion. Potential is a dangerous word, but I think there's a ton of potential in Fresno for a strong team. The defense is good. I mean, I say that, but we gave up over 400 total yards of offense, maybe 500 total yards of offense against New Mexico, but we forced 3 turnovers, so we win that game. And I believe New Mexico committed around 15, 17 penalties. So they hurt themselves in that game. So you have to ask the question, did we win the game or did New Mexico lose the game? And I think New Mexico lost that game. We put ourselves in the right position, in the right places to cause those things. We did the right thing. So that's good. And it's a team effort. That's what football is. It's a team sport. So I'm excited for this team and what they're doing. But we need to put ourselves, I say, in better positions. Okay, we force a lot of field goals. We force turnovers. Now we need to be consistent when it comes to stopping the run, stopping dual threat quarterbacks. And Dampier is good, but Sluka, who at UNLV, who we get this weekend, is after what I've seen this year, is even better. And their defense is better than New Mexico's. This is going to be a tough game. So there's tons of potential with Fresno State, but we're going to see what they're made of this next week, this upcoming Saturday, as they get the Rebels in UNLV. The Rebels are now ranked in the coaches poll. It's going to be a lot of fun. So when people ask me, Caleb, what do you think about this Fresno State team? I still tell them 4 games in, I don't really know. We're going to find out this week, though. The UNLV game is really the game where they're going to have to put everything together. And I think if this game is won, you're going to see the Central Valley explode. All the Bulldog fans are going to come out of the woodwork and, hey, we're here. We're jumping on the hype train, the bandwagon, and I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Younger, I didn't like bandwagon people, but when it's my team and they're jumping on the bandwagon, there's lots of seats. Let's come on in. Let's go. Let's get to the rest of the football world, in the college football world, and then we're going to talk about the NFL. What a weird NFL day in the NFL. By the way, NFL has been quite boring this season. I don't know how you guys feel. But I picked some games in the college football world that stood out to me, and I want to run through. I went by conference. So starting in the ACC, Clemson played NC State. Clemson wins 59-35. I think we can officially say NC State is overrated. They've had bad quarterback play. I mean, Grayson McCall didn't look good in the beginning of the season. He didn't play much this game. Like this game put the stamp on NC State as overrated. There's a lot of hype around them. Preseason, they have quarterback problems. Now, Clemson, on the other hand, they seem to have figured it out, maybe. since Georgia. They figured out some problems since Georgia. I can't say that they've had the toughest schedule since Georgia, but it seems like they have figured it out. They sit at 2-1 right now. And I looked at their schedule. They should be 6-1 by the time they get a strong Louisville team. Next week, they play Stanford, and we'll see what happens with Stanford as Stanford defeats Syracuse. And I think a lot of people, and if you listen to the show, there were two teams I talked about, watch out for. That's Stanford and Cal in the ACC. They're going to surprise a lot of people. And what do you know? Well, we'll get Cal just lost to Florida State, an 0-3 Florida State team, 14-9. They were winning that game and then blew it at the end. But that Cal team beat Auburn. And granted, that may be a bad Auburn team. But they beat an SEC school that there was some hype around at the beginning of the season. And now Stanford just beat Syracuse, and a decent Syracuse team. And Ashton Daniels, quarterback at Stanford, didn't look great. They're going to have some problems there against good teams. But he's athletic. He can play. I'm curious to see what they can do against Clemson, but Clemson should win that game and should be 6-1 going into their Louisville game. And that Louisville team is a good team. The ACC is still going to be fun, in my opinion. I think, if Florida State can figure it out, they could make some noise. Miami still looks really good. They crushed USF. So you got Clemson, Louisville, Miami. And then, you can't count out Florida State yet, in my opinion. You can't do it yet because you still have to play them. They have good players, and with that word potential, and if they figure it out, could be a deadly team. But I'm keeping my eyes on Clemson and Louisville. Okay, what happened to North Carolina? So North Carolina played James Madison. James Madison put up 70 on them. North Carolina scored 50, so he had 120 points. I hope he took the over on that one. But JMU won 70-50. That's a huge win for James Madison. Once again, preseason hype around North Carolina, gone. So NC State, North Carolina State, and North Carolina, they're done. The hype is gone. The hype train has ended. It's over. Everybody got off. But I want to read to you what Mack Brown said, coach of North Carolina. And this made me upset. He said, embarrassing day, shocking day, which I would understand. You gave up 70. But he adds this. You shouldn't be at North Carolina and lose to a group of 5 team, period. Well, I would say that's true in basketball. You better not lose to, the expectation should be national championship every year at North Carolina. But when it comes to football, you haven't proved much. James Madison, it has been a legit FCS program, and the second they made the move to FBS, they've been a legit program as well. They're very good. So, yeah, you can say you shouldn't be at North Carolina and lose to a group of 5 team, period. But you haven't proven anything on the football field. And to me, that's a shot at the group of 5. And there's very good group of 5 teams. We see year after year, the top group of 5 team, and granted it is the top group of 5 team, beat a top 10 FBS program. And I watch my entire life. I've watched top group of 5 teams beat Power 5 teams. So, and let me say this. I don't think anyone is surprised looking at that score saying, oh yeah, James Madison beat North Carolina. Because North Carolina hasn't proven anything yet. Yeah, you had Drake May. You had some decent wide receivers come out of there, decent running back in the past couple of years. But are you going out there and winning big games and beating Power 5 teams that's impressive? No, you're not. And when football fans look at that score, James Madison 70, North Carolina 50, what we're saying is, wow, that was a lot of points. No surprise that James Madison won, though. to be honest. So I don't think Mac Brown is correct in saying you shouldn't be at North Carolina and lose to a group of 5 team, period, because you haven't proven that you should beat them. One good year doesn't cut it for me. Everybody has one good year every once in a while. Can you do it on a consistent basis? So the ACC, they started out as looking like it was going to be really fun with Georgia Tech beating Florida State and all these others. I thought it was going to be I thought there was going to be a lot of teams, when Cal beating Auburn, competing for an ACC championship. That still may be the case, but I think it's dwindled down a little bit. I've lost the hype for the ACC I'm losing a little bit. I think there's just a few teams, Clemson, Miami, Louisville, that I would say are contenders to win it. Let's move to the American. So Navy beat Memphis. Memphis was a pick for most people to be the Group of 5 representative. They were my pick. Outside of the Mountain West champ, because I was really high on the Mountain West this preseason, and I don't know, and that's not there anymore. We're really top heavy. But Navy beat Memphis 56-44, another high scoring game. Navy is 3-0. I will add Army beat Rice 37-14 over the weekend. Army is 3-0. And I saw a stat yesterday. The last time Army and Navy started both 4-0, so that means they would have to win this upcoming weekend, was in 1945. And they are both favored this weekend. In 1945, this wartime. Well, I should say war, but everybody wanted to be a part of the military, so they had some men playing ball. I love that. And I would, what would be even cooler is that Army Navy weekend, right at the end. It's not a conference game. So we get Army, I don't think it counts as a conference game. So we get Army Navy, and then if they continue this run, then we get Army Navy again in the American Championship game. American Athletic Championship game. That would be sweet. I'm all for it. I'm a big fan of Army and Navy right now, and actually all of our military schools. But this is fun. So here's my thought. The first thing that came up is, are Army and Navy getting better? Are they getting better players? Are they getting better at understanding the triple option and playing that and executing? They have good teams this year. Are their defenses the best? And to be honest, I haven't watched them play this year. Or is there or have they played teams? Have they played poor competition? Or are the teams and coaches that are playing against this triple option flexbone attack, are they less understanding of it? Are the athletes now different from back in the day? Like, are these, is the IQ, the defense IQ down? No, there's a lot of questions there. Maybe I shouldn't give all the credit to a lack of competition and defensive minded players and coaches, because I think a lot of teams are going to offensive minded. Maybe I should give the credit to Army and Navy executing, being strong, tough. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I want to believe. Remember, I haven't watched a game yet with Army and Navy. I'll watch some highlights today. Or I record on YouTube TV. I can go watch the whole game. It's perfect. So, because I want to cheer for them. So I'm going to give them the credit. Let's keep going. Keep going, Army and Navy. Let's go. Big 12. Utah beat Oklahoma State without Cam Rising. Movie score is 22-19. Colorado has a Hail Mary to send it to overtime against Baylor. And then Travis Hunter forces a fumble at the 1 in OT to win that game. Fun, entertaining games. Every game Colorado is a part of, it's fun and entertaining, even if it's a blowout, because, if they blow them out, the guys, the coach and the kids are going to say stuff like, you doubt us, things like that. Well, they're not very good, They have good players, but as a team, they're not very good. I mean, Baylor's not a good team. They had to throw a Hail Mary to force OT. They did, and then they won it. Baylor's not a good team. Utah and OK State are very good teams, and Utah won without their starting quarterback. That tells you everything you need to know about Utah. That is just a tough, hard-nosed team that is going to run it down your throat and play really hard defense. And I believe Zach Wilson is the backup quarterback right now. Zach Wilson's younger brother is the backup quarterback right now. That's fun. BYU crushed Kansas State, a ranked Kansas State. And I've said this in the past, watch out for Kansas State because in a way that, and I say that in a sense of, I'm not sure if I believe in them yet. And BYU destroyed them. BYU looking pretty good. Then both Kansas teams. I mean, the Jayhawks are in trouble. I believe they're 1-2, 1-3. They blew an 11-point lead with 5 minutes left against West Virginia. I mean, I don't know what's going on with the Jayhawks, but they can't figure it out right now. They're not. Here's what I have seen with Kansas, because their offense has been exciting the past couple of years, and so I've watched a couple drives by them, and I've watched their defense. Their defense doesn't seem like that tough, gritty defense that, like a BYU or a Utah has. Not too many teams that play football like Utah, but just a little bit of toughness and grit. And the Jayhawks don't really have that. Granted, West Virginia has a good offense, but you blow an 11-point lead with 5 minutes left. And we also got to talk about the offense. We got to move the ball. We got to seal the game there. We can't do that. It's a lot of question marks for the Kansas Jayhawks. And this was a year when their quarterback comes back, their running back comes back, Devin Neal, Daniels, their quarterback. Like those are experienced guys. I'm sure they're all coming back to, have one last good season, and they just can't figure it out right now. It's kind of sad to watch. I'm not saying they can't. They have time still to put it together, but they haven't yet. I think it was Friday, Nebraska lost to Illinois. I watched this game, and Raiola looks legit. We've seen him in past games look really good. I think Nebraska kind of had that Colorado hype of last year, right? As Colorado played teams with name brands, but they were having a down year, those teams that they were playing. So Colorado looked really good, but in reality, they played bad teams. I think this is Nebraska this year. Okay, Raiola is really good, just like Shedeur Sanders, really good. But they play a tough Illinois team. Granted, Nebraska had a shot in this game. But I think Raiola and Nebraska need one more year to be that team to compete for a conference championship. Okay, they're going to beat teams that, they're going to, I should say it this way, they're going to compete with a lot of teams this year. Just like Colorado did last year. They competed with a lot of teams. They lost a lot of close games. They should have won more than they did. I mean, they blew a massive lead against Stanford. So Nebraska is that team this year. And with Raiola being young and doesn't have a ton of snaps, he's going to make mistakes. I think he forced a lot against Illinois. He tried to make plays when really he just needs to make the check down, throw the ball away. He fumbled a lot. He held on the ball way too long a lot of time. So he needs one more season. He needs this season and the next year. Like I'm hopping on that hype train during the offseason for Nebraska. And here's the other thing I'll say about Nebraska is that they're going to be good, next year, and then they're going to be good for a long time. And you're doing this with Texas is because there's so much money flowing into the Nebraska program, into Texas. They have all that NIL money. They're going to be good for a long time. They're going to be good soon, and then they're going to be good for a long time. These massive fan bases and the amount of NIL money coming in, they can bring guys in like a Raiola and a Matt Rule, pay them and build this team. Like Nebraska's going to be good. Texas is legit. Texas is going to be good for a long time. I think Sark Honestly, he's building a dynasty there. He's like we're starting to see the beginning of it. It's really cool to see. It's really cool to see Sark struggle. I mean, that's not cool to see. I don't like seeing people struggle personally, but what I like seeing is people grow, right? So him struggling with alcohol, and then the other person that I like in this is Saban giving him a chance, and then Sark taking advantage of that chance, changing, growing, learning from his mistakes, taking the job at Texas. Dude, Sark's going to be so successful as long as he's there, because Texas University is going to give him every opportunity to be successful. And we're seeing that now. Quinn Ewers, stud. Arch Manning, kid looks good, really good. And there's guys coming, waiting in the wing after them. I mean, this Texas program is going to be good for a long time. And I think Nebraska is doing that, right? So Nebraska was Colorado Nebraska's team this year is Colorado's team this year. The difference is that they are going to have sustained success. Like, I really see Nebraska growing. Colorado, after this year, I don't know what they're going to do. Right? They're building this thing. Like, there's the brand there that I don't know is sustainable. Okay, I think the brand is Dion. Like, there's a personal brand there, the Sanders family. And after that, what's going to happen? And Travis Hunter, after that, what's going to happen? I think they're going to struggle. Where Nebraska is building a program where they can have sustained success, just like Texas. Okay, Michigan, USC, we talked about it earlier. USC did not execute offensively, I would say. Now, it's hard against that defense. That's a pretty good defense. But I don't know if USC watched the Fresno State game, because they ran the same they ran a play that was very similar to the play where we threw a pick six to Will Johnson. Almost as play very similar, almost the same. It wasn't really a screen play where the wide receiver doesn't come to the ball. Will Johnson breaks on it, throws a pick six. So to Will Johnson. And then there were other parts in that game where they didn't execute well offensively. And then they weren't quite tough enough defensively. Michigan, once again, had trouble moving the ball other than on the ground. They had big run plays. That was the only time they were successful, is when they broke away on a big run with Mullings and Donovan Edwards. By the way, Mullings, love that back. He's going to be a good pro. And I think Donovan Edwards will be a good pro too. They're both built for the pros. So they were good. But the O-line was the difference. They opened up big holes. And here's what I'll say. USC defensively took bad pursuit angles. If you go watch that game again, the linebackers and safeties on the run play, now you could chalk it up to vision by Donovan Edwards and Mullings as well. But they're coming downhill and they're picking the wrong gaps and they're over pursuing. And all they did was make one cut to a different hole and hit that hole, and no one was there because linebackers and safeties over pursued their gaps and their alignments, and it left Mullings and Donovan Edwards wide open just to run free. So USC has to be more disciplined. But what we have seen is, and in this game and in past games, this defense is much improved. Like the DC made a big difference. So like USC is going to be fine. They're going to be good in the years to come. Miller Moss is really good, but that one or two plays where you lack execution and you against the top corner in the country, you're going to give up a pick six, and that's the difference in the game. So you can't have those things. And then defensively, you're just going to be a little more solid. They need a year of practice, a year under this DC, and they're going to learn a lot from this film, by the way. USC, I think this was really good for them. You know, I was always told when you take L's, you're taking lessons. Okay? You take an L, you got to learn. You have to learn. Right? If you just take the L and leave it there in the box score as an L, you're not learning. So they got to go watch film, learn their lessons, and really take that L. Some people say, you took an L. Yeah, I did. I learned my lesson. You better take the L and go learn your lesson. I think in the camera, it's this way. Uh, so I think USC can learn a lot from this game, and they're going to be better for it. Okay, let's move on. Maction. Buffalo defeated the number 23 ranked Northern Illinois team that beat Notre Dame. I mean, that's a bummer. I wanted to see NIU go undefeated and or close to it and have a shot at the. Maybe this is their only loss. You never know. But I think this says something more about Notre Dame. This is a bad look for Notre Dame because Notre Dame every year has this loss. They lost to Marshall a couple years ago. They can't put it together, right? They look past these teams. They can't do that anymore. Notre Dame, you can't. You have to learn from these. Like Marcus Freeman has to have his teams ready. He's got to do a better job of getting his teams ready for these teams. NIU is a good school. Don't get me wrong. I like NIU. But this hurts NIU, and this hurts me because I was really pulling for NIU. And then two, I think this really hurts Notre Dame. I think this hurts Notre Dame more than anyone. I think NIU can still win out and then have an argument, right, to be that fifth conference champion. But I think with NIU losing this and Notre Dame not being in a conference, this really hurts Notre Dame. Bowling Green put up a fight against Texas A&M. They lost 26-20. Bowling Green's been in it the past two games against Power 5 teams. Watch out, Mac, for Bowling Green. They're pretty tough. Mountain West, the question is San Jose State the real deal? They lost by 2 to Washington State in double overtime. In my opinion, before this game, hadn't really they looked good. Nick Nash and their quarterback, I forget his last name. Well, he's looked good. Nick Nash and the quarterback have looked good. And Nick Nash is a stud at wide receiver. I think he's going to have opportunity to play on Sundays. But I was wondering, are they the real deal? They haven't really played anybody good. Well, I would say that they're the real deal now. Washington State is a good team. Mateer, the quarterback there, dual threat guy, explosive. That offense is hard to stop. As 52-54 was the final score, and San Jose State kept up with them. So I think the Mountain West really needs to watch out for San Jose State. We saw Nevada crush Eastern Washington. Nevada's been in some close games. So I think the Mountain West is really top heavy with UNLV and Boise being the top two right now. And then I'd say Fresno State is the next tier. And then you have like San Jose State up there. You have, I think Nevada and Hawaii are teams to watch out for. So they're in that next tier. So I'm curious to see what happens in the Mountain West, but San Jose State's another team on Fresno State's schedule that we're going to have to say, okay, we better be on our A game. All right, moving to the SEC, Texas, best team in the country right now. They played UL Monroe, I believe, crushed them as they should. They did their job. I think Texas is number one in the country, hands down. Okay, everyone on my Twitter feed is talking about Tennessee right now, and a lot of people in the SEC are talking about Tennessee and their win over Oklahoma. Okay, here's my thing with this is, yeah, Tennessee's done their job. They've won. They've put up big numbers. They've won the games they're supposed to handily. So help me with my English here. But I haven't been impressed with Oklahoma this year. Houston's not a good team. They barely escaped Houston. Yeah, I haven't not been impressed with Oklahoma. So what we got was the expected result, right? Everything that Tennessee's done has been the expected result. Okay. So I don't know if Tennessee's really going to impress much. We will see. But in my opinion, I don't think they've been tested. I'll put it that way. I don't think Tennessee's been tested. Nico, their quarterback, he's looked good, but has Nico been tested? I don't think so. I don't think he's going to be tested until Florida in 2 weeks. And if he's not tested against Florida, which I do think Florida's a good team, I think they're middle of the road in the SEC, but after Florida, they get Bama. So if they're not tested against Florida in 2 weeks, they will be tested against Bama in 3 weeks. I don't think Tennessee beats Bama. To me, Tennessee's not as good as Bama. They're not as good as Georgia. Are they the third? They're not as good as Texas. Are they that fourth team in the SEC? I think there's going to be a lot of talk about the fourth place SEC team when it comes to playoff time, because I think Texas, Bama, Georgia right now, I think those top 3 SEC schools are getting in to the playoff. But what's going to happen with that fourth place team? Is Tennessee that team? Is there another team? We'll find out. I don't think Tennessee has been tested. I'm not saying they're not the fourth team. I just don't know where to put Tennessee yet because I don't think they've been tested. Okay. Now, Nico's looked good, but what happens when they play a decent defense, a pretty good defense, and forces him to make quick decisions, tough decisions, put balls in tough places? We'll find out. All right, real quick here. NFL, Tua gets hurt. Tua gets hurt. Backup comes in. He gets hurt. Dolphins, I have a quarterback problem, or they have an O-line problem. I would say they have an O-line problem when your quarterback is getting hit all the time. But once again, this is what happens when you have offensive coordinators that get a little too overzealous with weapons. Okay. In my opinion, you invest way too much money. A lot of teams do this, and not just offensive coordinators, but GMs and owners. They get way too excited or fall they get peer pressured into paying wide receivers and running backs way too much money. And then they struggle with their O-line. Okay, teams only go as far as their O-line and D-line take them. Okay? That's just the fact. And now the Dolphins, moving on to their third string quarterback here, they're going to have to sign some more, find some people on the practice squad. Maybe they find something there, but in my opinion, it's going to be really tough. If you have a poor O-line, your quarterback's getting hit all the time and getting injured, and you can't get your ball to your athletes or your weapons because your O-line can't block or you have a poor quarterback. So Dolphins are in for a world of hurt the next couple of weeks, in my opinion. Like I said earlier, Raiders continue to Raider is embarrassing. But I'll say this. They threw in Aiden O'Connell at the end there. He didn't look bad. I think it's time to give O'Connell a shot. And I thought, even with Gardner Minshew coming in, I think it's time to – I think there should have been – I think it should have been O'Connell as a starter. He was okay last year. He was fine. You got to give him a shot until he blows it. And so now some people – I've talked to some Raiders fans. They were all for Gardner Minshew. I'm all for Gardner Minshew, but I also believe that the guy that's been there taking the snaps with the team should most likely be the guy week 1 going in. And then if he loses the job, that's fine. He lost a job. But I think it's time to give O'Connell a shot in Las Vegas. All right, tonight we have Jaguars at the Bills. I think the Bills should take this. I believe there's rain in the forecast in Buffalo. If that is the case, I think that favors the Bills. I do. Trevor Lawrence has been this year. I think the leadership and athleticism of Josh Allen is going to be the differences in this one. If it's raining, he has to be a threat. Especially if it's raining. He has to be a threat. Redskins at the Bengals. You know me. They go by the Redskins. They're the Redskins on this show. Redskins at Bengals. And we'll see what Jaden Daniels can do. Bengals look bad week 1, but I think the Bengals are figuring it out. They should dominate this game. They're home. I'm picking the Bengals in that one. Okay, last thing. Last thing on the NFL, and then we'll get out of here. Are the 3-0 teams for real? There's 4. Steelers, Vikings, Seahawks, Chiefs. As of now, I think there's the Bills are 2-0. So we'll see what happens here. But Steelers, Vikings, Seahawks, Chiefs are for real. Let's leave them out. Chiefs are for real. But although I will say there's been some question marks, but they played some good competition. So I'm going to put the Chiefs in the they are for real category. But now let's talk about the Steelers, Vikings, Seahawks. Okay. If we go look, and I pulled it up, but it's not there. Come on, let's get there. I'm gonna pull up the scores for everybody. For each team. Okay, so Steelers. Okay, there's quarterback controversy or competition there, I should say. At Falcons, at Broncos versus Chargers. They win those games. I think you need to avoid the Steelers. Okay, I don't think they've played good competition. But the one thing we know about the Steelers is that they're going to be good up front in the trenches. With TJ Watt, they're going to be good and tough defensively. They're going to be good off on the offensive line. So they're not going to blow you out ever, but they're going to dominate you in the trenches and wear you out and win games. I think it's very possible that the Steelers win their next game in Indianapolis against the Colts in week 3. In week 4. And they start 4-0. And a lot of people start talking about the Steelers. But I'm putting them in the wait and see category because they have been a little iffy to me. I think they get the Cowboys at home. The Cowboys, to me, haven't been for real, but they can be a threat. They can beat a lot of teams. And that's the Sunday night game. So I'm going to wait until they play the Cowboys. And then after the Cowboys, they get the Raiders. And then they get the Jets at home. And that's really when we're going to see what the Steelers are made of. So Steelers need to wait and see. They could be 4-1. They could, and I think next week they win as well. And then we're looking at a 4-0 Steelers team. And I think there's going to be a lot of talk. But I'm not buying the hype yet about the Steelers. Let's talk Vikings. Okay, Vikings are interesting. So they beat the Giants. And you beat the Giants. They're supposed to do that. Then, week 2 and week 3, they beat the 49ers and the Texans. Okay, 49ers are banged up. And they blew it against the Rams. Oh my goodness, did they blow it? That was bad. Then they beat the Texans, and they didn't just beat the Texans. They put a beat down on the Texans, 34-7. After watching them beat the 49ers and the Texans, I think this team is for real. Sam Darnold is legit. And I don't know if you remember this. I don't know if it was Shanahan or somebody else in San Francisco. They said Sam Darnold throws the nicest ball I've seen in a long time. Sam Darnold is a good quarterback. But when he played for New York, and some people I know just left. But when he played for the Jets, there was no one there. There was no one else. He didn't have an O-line. He had very little help offensively. The coach was bad. Sam Darnold hasn't had a decent coach and decent pieces around him. Now he does. And, I'm buying in. I'm buying the Vikings right now. I like this team. Okay, they're in Green Bay next, and then they get the Jets at home, and then they get the Lions at home, and then they're at the Rams. Okay, their next 4 games are going to be tough. I think they should beat the Packers, and then we're looking at it, but it's a rivalry game. But I think we're going to be looking at a 4-0 Vikings. So wouldn't that be crazy? We're looking at 4-0 Vikings, 4-0 Steelers. But then they get 3 games: Jets, Lions, Rams. The other team, I'm kind of confused on is the Rams. What's going on with them? They can be good every once in a while. They look good. Then they're like, what the heck is going on with the Rams? They look terrible. But the Jets and Lions and Rams, I think, are going to be tough games. And that's where we're going to see the Vikings and see if they are truly at the top in the NFL. But I'm buying them right now after 2 wins over the 49ers and Texans. And then last but not least, we have the Seahawks. So Seahawks' 3 wins have been Broncos, Patriots, Dolphins, and a beat-up Dolphins team. They beat the Dolphins 24-3. They beat the Patriots in OT, and they beat the Broncos by 6. Okay, I'm not buying the Seahawks right now. I'm not buying the hype on them. Their next game is Monday night against the Lions. Next week, they get the Monday night game against the Lions. I think the Lions win that game, and I think everyone comes back to reality in Seattle. I like what they have. I mean, they have a lot of weapons there, and Geno Smith is a solid quarterback. But can they stop the Lions? That's going to be the question. So I'm out on the Seahawks right now. They have not impressed me in the 3 games that they've played right now against subpar competition. They're going to have to do more for me to buy into the Seahawks. Tell me what you think. What are your thoughts on the 4 undefeated teams? Steelers, Vikings, Seahawks, Chiefs. Who are you buying right now as a solid contender, solid team? Who do you think is deceiving us? I think right now that's the Seahawks. I'm still waiting on the Steelers. I can't make up my mind yet on the Steelers. I'm buying into the Vikings, and it's the Chiefs. I don't think anyone is saying the Chiefs are deceiving us right now. That's going to do it for me. Feel free, please share the video. That helps me out a lot. I'm really excited for what's to come. This is going to be a good time here in Nailed It Sports. Please, if you have any questions about Jesus, let me know what your thoughts are, what your questions are. I'd love to have a conversation. DM me on X, Caleb_Nail, and the video goes up on there too. So please retweet it. A comment on this down below. Comment on college football, what you thought about Fresno State is, and who's real and who's deceiving us in the NFL. Thank you, guys. God bless. Hey, for God so loved the world, he sent his one and only Son, Jesus Christ, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. And you can have that eternal life right now on earth. Walk with him. He will make your path straight. Thank you, guys. God bless. Peace and joy and hope.